Kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to Big Hairy News. Hi, Chewie, and hi, Clint.
G'day.
Hello. we usually we do this very phased in, like we bring the guest in, we introduce them. No, straight to the wolves.
I forgot that part and then realised as soon as I jumped on the screen, I thought, well, it's too late now.
Too late now. Just take me off.
How are you, Chewie?
I'm good, Emily. I'm good. It is the end of my working week, of which I am very, very, very glad. Yeah, I was just saying to Clint just before we went live that it would be great if the world could just calm down and stop doing the whole unprecedented times thing. That'd be great. I think the universe is out to get us, that we can't pivot BHN into my TV and movie review idea. It's just fighting. There's too much stuff going on.
A shame. It's a shame.
Which is why Clint's here with us today.
Hey.
Yeah, how are you, Clint? What's I'm sure there's been plenty going on in your world.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Yeah, no, it's a busy old time in politics in Wellington. Well, I'll tell you more about my thoughts once we're in the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Another big day today in terms of news, so we've got plenty of things to talk about. Before we do that, should do a bit of housekeeping. We've got shout out to our patrons on Patreon. I always get that wrong. Patrons on Patreon.
It always gets it wrong too.
That's all the same, right? For supporting us here on BHN, you can go to patreon.com/BigHairyNews and become a member. There's a $5 tier up to a $2.50. There's a $5 tier and a $2.50 tier. All the way up to $250 a month tier. And we really appreciate you guys, as well as everyone who turns up in the chat and all of your super chats. Yeah. You make the show possible, which we really appreciate. And the shop, of course, cannot forget the shop, which is currently up and running. And guess who's bright and hairy face is right up there at the top.
One day, someone is going to walk past me in the streets of Dunedin wearing this violently orange hoodie with my own face on it, and I'm not going to know how to deal. It is going to be quite something.
It's definitely not my color. Clint, are you a fan of the orange?
My mates gave me something that pretty much that color with Nick Cage's face on it, because we get together and watch Cage movies. So it's got this huge Nick Cage face, but it's the same orange. And no, it's not really my color, but I have to wear it.
It's very safe. It's a safe color. You won't get run over by a forklift or shot in the back by a hunter.
That's true. That's very, very true. Oh, you can't see anything? Blank screen. What's going on? Apparently they don't see anything. You guys can see things?
Yep.
Oh. Apparently you guys... Apparently Joe's not seeing it.
Daddy Pat says it's not there. So...
Yeah.
Oh, well. So shall we talk about the news of the hour, I suppose, the whole reason Clint is here tonight.
Yes, of course. Chewie, could I get you just to share something to check what's going on, if it's just me or if it's I don't think I've ever seen that problem before. Something that's preferably not a DM. Just in case. Oh, I lost Chewie now too. No, he's still there. He's frozen.
He's just sitting very still.
He's frozen in thought.
I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm losing you.
What is going on? I broke everything.
I will return.
Okay.
I can hear you clearly, Ems.
Well, I don't know. I'm just getting a bunch of strange things going on. There's ghosts. All right, let's try it. We'll try.
Okay, everything seems to be fine now. I think I've got you guys.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Oh, okay. No, Chewie's down. Chewie's down.
Okay.
Chewie's gone. I'll just check you guys can hear this all right before I get started.
Political editor Mikey Sherman has more details and reaction.
It's coming through all right?
Yep.
Wonderful. All right, let's do this. So, big news today. Phil Goff was sacked. Not by the Prime Minister, but Winston Peters. Took things into his own hands and decided, because he was Foreign Minister, that Phil Goff's comments regarding Trump were not appropriate for his role as the High Commissioner to London. And he got sacked pretty much on the spot, really. Lots of things around this, Clint, that I'm sure you have plenty to say. But let's just jump into the story and quickly get a rundown of what was said and why he was sacked. And I was going to ask Chewie if he comes back in time, some historic context. But Clint, if you've got any
Sure.
wise words to add in the small segment here, but let's go
Sure.
with some sound.
Mikey Sherman has more details and reaction.
A career politician since entering Parliament in 1982, Phil Goff has served as a cabinet minister, Labour leader, Mayor of Auckland, and up until today, the High Commissioner to the UK. He's been told to go after comparing Donald Trump's...
Apparently people still can't see anything. Can you guys hear it? Can hear but no picture. Okay, sorry guys. Let's just this is an audio. This is the audio part of the podcast. I'll try and fix this in a second.
He's been told to go after comparing Donald Trump's approach to Russia and the war in Ukraine to a speech from Winston Churchill at a public talk on international relations.
You had the choice between war and dishonour. You chose dishonour, yet you will have war.
He then mentioned the bust of Churchill seen here looming over that explosive meeting between Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky.
President Trump has restored the bust of Churchill to the Oval Office, but do you think he really understands history?
While some laugh.
So, I'm not a history nerd.
Okay.
Chewie is the history nerd. Oh, is he just back in time? Clint, if you have anything just to say quickly, otherwise I was going to get Chewie to hopefully fill us in on what he said and why he said it.
No, let Chewie go for it if you see.
Is he here? No, he'll come back.
No.
I'm sure he's got plenty to say. You carry on, Clint.
Okay. So, yeah, bit of, I guess, historical context there. Goff was referring to something that Churchill said to Neville Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister just before World War II and at the start, when he signed the famous Munich Agreement, which gave away effectively Czechoslovakia to Nazi Germany. And it was meant to be peace in our time. There's the famous photo of Neville Chamberlain waving this agreement when he got back to England. And of course, it wasn't peace in our time. It was what we call appeasement. And all it did was delay the war and, in fact, make Nazi Germany stronger. And so the comparison with the US now siding with Russia over the Ukraine war is what Phil was going for there. Yeah, so a little bit of context. My first political job was in Phil Goff's leader's office in 2011. Came in just in time for the disastrous campaign that saw us lose that election. So I was a very junior researcher. I probably saw him about 3 times in that 6 months. So we're not great mates, but I've spent a little bit of time with him over the years in various contexts. He's a enormously experienced politician. He's been foreign minister himself, and it's kind of strange that he would make a comment like this in a forum. A little bit of context, that happened at Chatham House, and I don't know if this is sort of a widely known thing, but there's a thing called Chatham House rules in politics where if you make a speech under Chatham House rules or have a meeting under Chatham House rules, what is said in that meeting can be reported, but not who said it. And that is meant to allow people to speak more freely. He may have thought that this thing was under Chatham House rules because it was happening at Chatham House, but it wasn't. It was being broadcast, hence the video that we just saw. So maybe he spoke a bit more freely than he otherwise would have, and maybe he made a bit of a mistake there. But definitely, something that it was an error. It's something that as the High Commissioner he probably shouldn't have been saying. But on the other hand, is it a firing offence? It seems quite hard. Yeah.
I can understand why Peters would make the decision, considering the situation with Trump and how volatile he is, showing that kind of hard. They're very lots of spine, the opposite of a jellyfish, a cockroach maybe, and sort of putting a hard line and saying, "Hey, let's not piss off Trump right this second because he could put some pretty hard shit on our economy." Yeah, Chewie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I thought this was bizarre, and I think it's going to play out quite strangely for the general public as well. I think some of Chris Hipkins' comments about this are quite enlightening. He made the comment that, hey, there's a difference between being a politician involved in politics and a diplomat being involved in diplomacy, and that seems to be the big issue. The diplomats tend to have to be very, very careful with their words, and even a pretty mild comment can be taken as a huge slight. So I don't know if this is Winston thinking he's going to get ahead of something, but for the general public, I mean, when I saw the video and read the transcript and that sort of thing, I was like, this is the most mild of comments. Like it's not like he came up and he was like doing Friday night at the Apollo and just going, "Hey, Trump's a big dummy." Yeah. It was a historical question and a sort of comparison, but for Winston to come in with the big guns, to sack a high commissioner to the UK, seemingly without asking anybody. I don't know how that plays out, and I guess a chain of command. He is foreign minister; it's within his purview. But I think this would be something that you would run up the chain before you pulled the trigger, or there might be other avenues before you get to pulling the pin on your high commissioner. But it seems really odd that I guess the second part of the story is that he didn't ask the Prime Minister. He told him afterwards.
Yeah.
And then we questioned him on
Mm.
that. After that goes, I don't need to ask the Prime Minister. I made him the Prime Minister.
Yeah. Extraordinary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just, for me, that's the biggest part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just play the word clip because I have got that set up. And I know you guys can see it. But can the chat see this time? I know you can hear it. Is there a big picture on the screen? If not, I am sorry. But you'll at least be able to hear it. Yeah, thank you. I don't know what's going on.
Hey,
yes, you're right.
Throwback to last night's show. Just putting it on a YouTube here. The ad that's playing before I can see it is Betcha.
Some gambling. Is it Lotto? They still can't see it, but that's all right. You guys can see it, and the commentary is the big important part. At least you can hear it. But yes, you're right. I found, and I'd love to hear your thoughts afterwards, Clint, on Chris Hipkins and also former Prime Minister Helen Clark's comments around this. But we'll just play a wee bit of where Winston says that he went over the Prime Minister's head, which seems a bit strange, if you ask me.
For Winston Peters to make.
Goff's former boss and Labour Prime Minister Helen Clark today calling it a very thin excuse for a sacking.
I don't listen to Helen Clark and I don't respond to Helen Clark. She used to be Prime Minister, she's not Prime Minister today.
But even today's Prime Minister wasn't consulted.
Because I'm the Minister for Foreign Affairs.
He's the Prime Minister.
No, one more time. Look, this is not juvenile time. I know he's the Prime Minister. I made him the Prime Minister.
I don't need to be, and I expect my ministers to have total accountability over their portfolios. They're empowered to do that.
And do that, Peters did.
So
My 2 cents on the I have full what is it? I give my ministers full authority to do whatever's necessary within their portfolio. My first thought comes to Erica Stanford and her associate minister, David Seymour. But that's another discussion for another day. Clint, what do we think? I'm curious to see what you think about Chris Hipkinson and Helen Clark's thoughts around this. Because Chris seemed pretty like, I'm not going to comment either which way.
Yeah, I think you have to understand there's really deep personal relationships there. Helen Clark and Phil Goff go back 40 years. When she stood down as leader after 2008, apparently at the caucus meeting after the election loss, she said, Phil's taking over. And that's when he became the leader, and Hipkins worked for Phil Goff when he was a staffer. They also go back a long way. So that, for both of them, they wouldn't want this to be the final chapter in Phil Goff's political career. I think what Chippy said about, there is a difference when you're a public servant versus a politician. I saw before this on Twitter some people pointing out that Judith Collins had made comments sort of along similar lines to what Goff had said, arguably stronger in condemning the comments that the US government has been making about Ukraine. But, she's a minister. She's politically accountable. Well, in theory, she's accountable to the Prime Minister and ultimately to the voters, whereas the job of a High Commissioner is to represent the government's views and not, substitute his own opinions for those. So, it's a hard one. It would be, it would be sad if this was kind of like the end point of Phil Goff's political career, because he has been doing so much for so long, and it needn't be. He can still come and do useful work, I'm sure. On the other stuff, Luxon, it's funny. He goes, they have full accountability. It's like he was saying the other day, Seymour is responsible for the school lunches program, but those words, accountable, responsible, to whom? To the Prime Minister, right? His job is to make sure that the people under him are doing the right thing. And all he ever seems to say is, they can go for it. It's their portfolios, go for it. And that's not usually how it works. Like the idea that the foreign minister in any government would sack the High Commissioner to London, the most prestigious diplomatic appointment that New Zealand has, without talking to the Prime Minister, it's just unbelievable. No normal government would do that. When if I digress a little bit, when I was Phil Twyford's ministerial advisor, I remember a few months in, like 3 months in, he said, Cabinet has done 1,000 pieces of business so far since we've come into government. And, I was like, this huge amount of stuff you guys have to go through, it's really draining. I wonder if, you should be covering this. They have to, every individual board member on like the CAA or every little board that the government has to go to Cabinet to be signed off, and Phil said, no, we're a team. We need to know what each other's up to. We need to be able to support each other. And so, everything goes to Cabinet. And so the idea that this, massive decision over who represents New Zealand in London is taken without the Prime Minister even knowing. And when he finds out, he's like, yeah, no, I'm cool with it. Yeah, cheer, no worries. it's pretty embarrassing. It just shows who's really in charge once again.
It seems, and I mean, this makes a lot of sense to me. Whenever Luxon has gone, hey, look, I have full faith in my minister, and they carry out their portfolio and that sort of thing, that is very corporate. That the manager trusts his department heads to just do their fucking job and leave him out of it. But it's not how politics works. And I think, like, I keep remembering, Luxon doesn't have a portfolio. His job, as he sees it, is to manage the government as a whole. Yeah. But then when you see this, he isn't included in what's going on. And when he's questioned about it, because he is the leader, he just palms it off to back to the minister again, like it doesn't involve him. It's really strange. I don't think we've seen anything like this before.
It was such a huge flex from Peters there to say, I made him Prime Minister. It says who's really running this and who's the show pony.
What's your share of the vote there, boss? But I mean, he is right. Like, we've said this multiple times on the show, Luxon left the door open a crack just to get Winston in. So he's not wrong, but to just go out in front of the press and go, yeah, I put him there, I can take him out again. Essentially that's the other part of what he's saying. And he said it before. He said it about Jacinda, that he made her Prime Minister. He's got, I mean, this is shocking, I'm sure, to a lot of people. Winston seems to have a very high opinion of himself.
Really?
I don't know if you guys have noticed that.
Really? I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, he does. Does he reference himself as the kingmaker? Is that his words or someone else's words?
I guess what I wonder now is what's the mechanics of this? Does this mean Phil Goff has to pack up and come back to New Zealand and they have to find someone else? Wow.
Yeah. And it's usually a political appointment. There's a handful of these diplomatic posts that are usually political leaders, Canberra, London, DC. And so it'll be interesting to see who this government chooses to reward with the London posting. Absolutely.
Is it a reward? Is it kind of as a top position, and like, what do you actually do as the High Commissioner? Is it just sort of a diplomatic, I'm here representing?
Yeah. And especially in that one of these big postings where you've got lots of staff, he's not having to deal with the everyday things of Kiwis in New Zealand, in London, who are in trouble or whatever. His job is to be New Zealand's representative at events like this Chatham House event, at national days and all those kind of things. So there is prestige in that, and it is seen as a sort of one of the rewards that ex-politicians can get as one of these prestigious postings. Absolutely.
Yeah. The one I can remember is, I think, Trevor Mallard's in Ireland. Yeah, Dublin. That was very much seen as a pat on the back and off you go. Can imagine that's a pretty cruisy job.
Yeah, exactly. Who they choose for this one, it'll be interesting to see. Will it be someone from national? Will it be someone with a New Zealand First background, for example? Will be an interesting question. But I guess we'll see.
Is this a good opportunity to get rid of Richard Prebble?
Mad Dog. I don't know if you want to have him over there representing New Zealand.
Yeah, that's the trade-off there. The question that I have for you, Clint, is what do you think? If I don't even know if it's an if question, but what do you think Trump would have thought about his comments, or would it just gone straight over his head?
Well, I wonder whether this was like how did this get picked up and land on Peter's desk? Like, it's not like Peters is watching this. It seems unlikely that someone in Goff's staff would have dobbed him in up the chain back to MFAT and then onto the minister. I wonder if someone in the US embassy saw it and it got bounced to the New Zealand government that way. It's a question I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have got up to Trump's level, but maybe someone in the US delegation to take offense.
Yeah, I mean, ordinarily, I'd say the US diplomatic corps would be, thick-skinned enough to not really care. But this is a different bunch.
Yeah.
So I could imagine that's happening, of someone firing that down the chain and going, "Have you heard what this guy's fucking said about us? I think it's about us. Anyway, I'm angry." And then that's got back to Winston very, very quickly. Yeah, I didn't even notice when he made these comments. How long ago was it?
That's a good question. Not sure when the original story came out.
I haven't seen the timeline on that.
I think it was the 4th London time. So yeah, that's only 36 hours ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's not something that's bubbled through the system. It's been quite quick.
Yeah, it's interesting. There wasn't a please explain. There wasn't. There doesn't seem to have been that Peters talked to Goff and they talked it through, or it seems that he acted very quickly.
Well, interestingly, it was stated that actually Winston Peters didn't make the final. He may have made the call, but he didn't actually actually made the call himself. That it was his administration team that actually sent the message essentially, but I assume that it came from Peters.
I think that's probably for a technical reason, that they know how to send an email, whereas Winston was probably putting it in a sealed canvas bag for the next clipper to England, and then it would have taken a bit too long, so someone's just got in there.
Yeah, needed some help from the Zoomers, right?
Yeah.
That is interesting, though. Yeah.
Clint, is there anything that you want to let us in on? Is there anything else you wanted to say around this particular topic? I assume this is probably the last we'll hear about it, or do you reckon this is a story that might continue on?
I think the question of did the US complain will play out, and these things are diplomatically sensitive, so it may be that the official information around that is withheld when people ask. But I think that's an interesting question that people want to know, and also, why was it so quick? Why was there no please explain? Why was there no meeting? Why was it just you're out, mate? I think just the final thing from me on this is that this dynamic between Peters and Luxon is so interesting. It goes right back to when Luxon tottled around the country like an eager schoolboy during the coalition negotiations. Winston went up to Auckland. Luxon follows him up. Oh, he's down at Wellington now. Down he goes. And right there, he gave away the power in the relationship. Each party in the coalition has a veto, right? You need all of them to make the majority, but that means they're all equally powerful. Not that Luxon is the weakest of the three, but he's made himself the weakest of the three via these actions like this, and it just makes you wonder how's it going to play out when we hit crunch points later this year, like the ferries, like the budget, like Peter's no longer being deputy prime minister. These are ruction points, and if Peters is openly thumbing his nose at Luxon now and saying, "I can do whatever I want," and you won't do
They've been
anything
doing it the
about
whole
it.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
the thing, is that
he gets
the two
that
of
from
them have
both
been
of
doing
them.
it the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not even a now thing. This is just as a continuation. I don't understand why. I don't know if it's the public haven't picked it up, or we're just kind of sick of hearing why are you so weak to Luxon, and it's just, it seems to almost like roll off his back a little bit. I feel like it's getting annoying to me, but I don't know if the general public are getting annoyed with it, you know?
Well, I think the polling's, he's down his preferred PM ratings, nationals in the toilet, that
The
people are
trend is
seriously
not
saying,
kind.
seriously saying this could be a one-term government, and I think that rests on Luxon and how he's leading his government.
I mean, you guys know that I hate repeating myself and really labouring a point and just beating the dead horse. But Luxon's not very good at this. He's not a politician, and it's moments like these that show he does not have control of his other coalition leaders, and he treats them like it's not even like you said, it's not equal. It shouldn't be equal. He's the majority coalition partner. He's the one that got the most of the votes, right? So he should be going to you to these two. Fucking fight it out amongst yourselves, but everything goes through me. The buck stops with me, and we've never seen that from him. Never ever. It's always been like, well, I have total faith in whatever the fuck is going on. Don't ask me about the details. I don't care. So yeah, this is what we've got. He's not a leader. He's a middle manager.
Yeah, and I think the middle manager's the thing, right? Like, I don't know how the style would have worked in New Zealand. Like, did people go off and order planes without running it past them first? Like the CEO, the CEO is actually meant to exercise control and hire and fire, and he seems very unwilling to.
Somebody under him thought it was a good idea to fix turbines for the Saudi military while they were bombing the shit out of villages. So I assume that didn't go through the CEO.
Yeah.
I was talking about that actually recently about the CEO thing with the whole way things are currently working is it's kind of like if one of your middle managers, the people below you, your executive team, if one of them was doing financial fraud or something like that, or it was found out, and then the CEO goes, "Oh well, I have full faith in my executive team to sort it out amongst themselves and their portfolio. This really has nothing to do with me," sort of thing. You can't get away with that. At the end of the day, it falls on you as a CEO, and a lot of CEOs fall because of that sort of shit that happens under their leadership. Whether or not they acted to get rid of the person, if someone was fraudulent or there was some financial issues going on, you're the CEO, the one that takes the blame. But we don't seem to see this happening if we look at it the same way. As a company, the government is a company. We just don't see the same thing.
I mean, imagine in an alternate world where Luxon is good at this. Right, this gets front-footed by, hey, look, I was made aware by Winston Peters, the foreign minister, that our High Commissioner to London said some comments. They put us in a very fragile place with one of our major trading partners. So I made the call to terminate his commission. That was my call as the leader. He's coming home. Same result, very different statement being made there. That is not the leader that we have.
Yeah. And, in a year and a half or maybe sooner, the shareholders in New Zealand will get to decide if they want to keep the CEO. So on current track,
customers have a lot of power. Yes. Customers have quite a lot of power, don't they? Well, they should. Clint, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. And thanks for giving some insight to that. Definitely a story that we'll keep an ear out on, and we'll definitely have you back to talk more to it if there's any more updates, I guess, and any other things political.
Cheers! Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Clint. Always good to have you on.
Bye. Oh, that was wonderful. Apart from the black screen, but that's all right.
The black screen.
The black screen. Luckily, the next two, if I can get them to work, are not videos. So it'll just be my beautiful voice reading to you. Chewie, because you're a nerd when it comes to history stuff.
I am. Proudly so.
I don't know if Clint actually did explain this. I was listening, but it kind of went over my head a little bit. The head in the Oval Office, the Churchill head. Do you know much about that Churchill head?
Yeah, there's been a bust of Churchill. Like whenever a president comes into the Oval Office, they kind of redecorate. They choose what portraits they want to have up. A lot of people put a lot of analysis into the works of art or the objects that people have in their Oval Office. They're there to make statements. And Winston Churchill was one of Trump's choices this time around, and I believe last time as well. And I think that is the big thing. People are drawing a lot of comparisons between Zelensky's position today and Winston Churchill's position in the early days of World War II. Now, historically, obviously, the war in Europe rages for a good couple of years before America gets involved. And the whole time, Winston Churchill is begging the US to get into the game because Europe has fallen. England standing alone, ignore the massive empire, standing alone. And they really, really want to get America in the game. They're trading gold with America to buy arms and ammunition. Congress and the Senate really want to fucking stay out of it. They don't see why Europe's problems are theirs. There's even, I believe, a family relationship between, I think it's Roosevelt at that time and Churchill. They're second cousins or something like that. So Roosevelt wanted to get involved. Congress didn't want to let him. Congress and the Senate didn't want to let him. So yeah, I think it's that whole thing of like, oh, okay, so Trump's got a Churchill bust in his office, but does not understand any of the history about it, does not see the comparisons that are being made between Hitler and the Soviet Union carving up Poland without Poland being involved in that conversation at all. There are lots and lots of comparisons between World War II and the war in Ukraine. And it's all gone over his head. He doesn't see, we're seeing very much an isolationist position from Trump. It is America first, everybody else second. There's talk of them pulling out of the UN. There's talk of them pulling out of NATO. All of these really destabilizing things. And everybody just looks at that, looks at the things that's going on and going, it's looking a bit 1930s in here again. So, yeah, I think Goff's comments, sure, I'm going to take Winston in his word that they're diplomatically dangerous. But from a common sense point of view, I think Goff was just saying what a lot of people are thinking.
Yeah. Shall we get to some super chats?
Yeah, absolutely. And after we've done the super chats, I'm going to show you a piece of fan mail that I got today.
Oh, please do. Gary Burb for $2 says, and another one bites the dust by Phil Goff. Cookie Nick says, am I late? $2. Peter says, for $5, this is obeying a fascist in advance. The Americans don't get to dictate the members of our diplomatic corps. Thank you. I was like, that's not right. At most, this required an apology. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of like, was it really that offensive? Because it's a very, clearly, it's very historical in nature in what he was saying, right? And if you're not a history nerd, it's a little bit like, I mean, I know Churchill and all these sort of things, and there are a lot of comparisons made between what's happening in Ukraine and World War II. But it does kind of go over my head a little bit. So I'm like, would Trump even, apart from the very last comment, which was like, does he even understand history? I mean, does he even understand history? Would this have just gone over his head unless someone's pointing
just
at it
asking
going,
questions?
What's this guy doing over here in not in New Zealand, but who's this Kiwi guy calling you an idiot? Let's get him fired. You're a big dum-dum. It does seem quite overreactionary. So, yeah, interesting one. I like this carfuckle, I assume. $2. Winston Peters putting boat in to Christopher Luxon. This is how you sack people. That's exactly what I saw. It's exactly what I saw. Whether it was kind of a power move to be like, this is how you sack. Sack. Not not the other vowel. This is how you get rid of people. Christopher Luxon, and then just blew it into this. Oh, Jesus. Blow it up as this big.
You lost the classroom, Em.
No, made a big thing out of it just to prove a point that he can fire people, and Christopher Luxon doesn't have the balls to do it.
That's what it seems like to me. This is more about Winston Peters than Goff. It is more about Winston Peters than Luxon. It just seems like it's unfortunate. Like a foreign minister sacking a previous foreign minister seems to be like a whoa. Yeah, it's a big call. It's a hell of a slap.
Power move.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lastly, the Falconer NZ for $5 says National is dreaming if it thinks Trump will not start any negotiations without the threats of tariffs, so why bend the knee and kiss the ring? Exactly. He's going to do it regardless. Like, I don't think there's anything that we can and can't say that is going to change his mind. Like, once he gets whiff of us, he's going to be like, nah, them Kiwis, just get rid of them, fuck them. I mean, he's doing it to everyone else. Canada, of all things, of all countries, he's gone after them, so... Yeah. All right, Chewie, where's your fan mail?
Okay. So obviously I have my social medias and that sort of thing, and it's some of them it's quite obvious that I do BHN and I don't hide who I am and that sort of thing. But of all platforms that I got message today was on Instagram. So I can hear Pat's voice in my headset going, "Don't feed the trolls," but it's just too funny. It's just too funny, Ems. Hopefully everybody can see this. My message on Instagram: "Hi there, lip dick. I just want to say you and your mates' tears are quite delicious, so keep it up. Beautiful to see all you far left communist ideologies crumble because you losses have no good foundations." I did a little bit of snooping on his Instagram. I found his wife, so I've sent her this. And I also found out that he's a hairdresser. So I don't know. I'm cool with it. Thanks, man.
Wow. I mean, being called a left communist is like a compliment in my opinion.
Oh, no. He's noticed I'm lefty. He's called me the thing that I identify as. I didn't put it up because I do respect the dude's privacy, but you know, when you're going to send someone a message from your own social media thing, the first thing someone's going to do is click on the profile, right? And there's a lovely photo of him, his wife, and his two young kiddies in front of the Christmas tree, and a lovely matching shorty pajamas set. And like, if I wasn't the fine, upstanding gentleman that I am, I would be putting that on screen now, which I'm not going to do. I wanted to. I thought about it for a while. I discarded it. It's too mean. Then I came back to it. I thought maybe I will. And then I went, no. High road Chewie tonight. High road Chewie.
If I would have gone through his profile and just liked every single image as far back as you could possibly do, and then comment under every single one and be like, thanks for your fan mail. Thanks for your fan mail. Thanks for you looking good. Thanks for cute kids. But then it probably would have been creepy and like, okay, that's too far.
Yeah, it's too creepy to do that all at once. I think if I did that once every like 14 days or something, just liked another post. Another post. Yeah. Kill him with kindness.
Yeah. I mean it's great engagement for his profile, so you know. Can you really be
weird tangent because I just saw Belfast Child in the chat mentioned my hairdresser's Ukrainian. because I am obsessive about the defense of Ukraine, I watch a lot of videos, and some of them I regret. Some of them are just full on. Some of them are really interesting. I'm a war nerd anyway. But I watched some drone footage the other day. I'm not going to put it up. Of 2 Ukrainian soldiers trying to assault a Russian position, like a dug-in, like a bunker sort of thing, and they're chucking hand grenades in and they're shooting at it, and it's not doing anything. They run away and they come back with a beehive, and they throw an entire beehive in the door of this bunker. And that is the most there's an award for creative battlefield tactics. Chucking a beehive at the enemy is definitely up there, right?
That is a power move. that is something I never would have thought to do.
So
wow.
like if the Americans take the weapons away, Ukrainians will turn other things into weapons. I don't like. This was a funny story, and now I'm going to make it a serious point. I think just because America is cutting the flow of weapons to Ukraine, and in today's example, stopping supplying them with satellite imagery and real-time information to plan their attacks, I don't think the Ukrainians are going to stop fighting because somebody is inside their country and they don't like it.
Yeah.
Would you say that the first option to assault that bunker was Plan A, and the beehive was Plan B?
Oh, too good. There's some good stuff in the chat here too. Here you go, honey. These are all great, by the way, guys. At the end of the day, this is an invasion of Ukraine. I have no qualms saying that one, and I don't think anyone else on the world stage has any qualms saying that either. So, all power to Ukraine. Let's see if they can get through it. Some of the interesting commentary I've seen around this is we could be, and I feel like I am witnessing the next biggest historical event. You know, we had World War One, we had World War Two, we had things like perhaps lesser so Vietnam, Korea. This feels like the next one of those.
Oh, 100%.
Probably more so World War One and Two, where you have it's a global thing and there's a huge shift in things. But this feels like a complete shift in a different direction, and it could be the fall of the American Empire, and it could be the bolstering of Europe. And I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm living through history a little bit. You know, like COVID, obviously, yes, and all those things, but this feels like something different. You know.
The previous couple of years, I've said this a couple of times, it feels like when you're reading a history book and it's like the prologue. These are the events that led up to major historical event. You know, like you can't talk about World War II without talking about the Great Depression or the Spanish Civil War and all of those sort of things. They all feed into it. It's never just this one cohesive thing that people just point their finger on it, go, that's the starting point. You don't know until later. And this, I think you're right. Everything that Trump's doing at the moment just seems to be ratcheting everything up. And I think the idea of America having your back, however half-assed, that's a big hammer sitting in the background that might just come out and play. And I think from Europe's point of view, if they're turning around and going, well, America's not a trustworthy ally anymore, we need to rely on ourselves more. And the best option here is we can't rely on the threat of the big hammer, so maybe we need to get involved. Like, are we going to see individual EU nations outside of the framework of NATO decide to get involved more in Ukraine? You know, and that can be as much as people, like there's a lot of UK forces in Poland, as an example. And it's kind of that shifting, you know. France is saying they might stage some fighters out of Germany. Germany's saying that they might give better weapons to Ukraine because they're not really worried about what America thinks anymore. You know, all of those sort of flow-on effects. But yeah, the years to come will show how it goes. But I keep coming back to an analysis that I saw, and there's been nothing that has convinced me that this isn't wrong. Russia's whole thing is they have a very big, long, exposed border from a territory point of view. There's no big mountain ranges or anything like that. It's just long and it's flat and it's very, very hard to defend. What they did during the Cold War is they brought that all the way forward into Germany and the Czech Republic, and they used mountain ranges in that area to sort of funnel. If anybody was going to have a crack at them, they'd have to come through these two different ways. And so when you look at what they're trying to accomplish in Ukraine, they can accomplish it one of two ways. They can take Ukraine, or they install a government that's friendly to them. And the news today is Trump's administration is now talking to Zelensky's political opposition in the Ukraine. And they have said, you know, they've been very clear at saying, well, if Zelensky doesn't want to come to the peace table, maybe he needs to step aside. Maybe we need to talk to someone that will talk with Russia. And that seems to suggest a president or a politician that's more friendly towards Russia. Now, if you go back before Russia invaded, before they took the Crimea, when Ukraine had that, I think they call it the Maidan Revolution, that was toppling a Russian-friendly government. That was a people's revolution that threw them out. And from that point on, Russia was very much like, oh, we're going to take the Crimea back. We're going to take the Donbass, that sort of thing. So that's what set all of this in motion. So whether they take Ukraine by force or they take it by politics, I think as militarily unsuccessful as they've been, because they've got their asses kicked, politically, Russia has played an A game. They toppled the American empire. They distracted the world away from Ukraine by setting fire to Palestine, by making Israel go absolutely fucking murderously insane. That compromised Biden, that compromised America, that accomplished their aim. So yeah, it's all big picture stuff.
I can't find a topographical because it would be too much. And I don't even know if the audience can see this. This is me testing it.
I've been told that they can't see it, or the screen that I put up, they couldn't see either. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious whether or not that was just the, oh, no, you guys just can't see anything. It's really sad. That's really sad. As you were talking about maps, I was curious to actually, not that I can find a topographical one, but who they're actually sitting next to. So it's Ukraine, Belarus, Latvia, Estonia. Is that the one? Which one? The one? Oh, Lithuania. Hang on, that might be the one that Luxon likes. Estonia and Finland, and then there's also Georgia, Azerbaijan, and one that's really, 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 really tiny that I can't read. But
and look, if you look at all of those countries, all of them have been attacked by Russia.
You've also got
like
Kazakhstan and Mongolia and China.
They all remember. Like there's those small little Balkan countries, Estonia, Latvia, those guys, they are very, very small countries, but they spend a lot of their GDP on making sure that their military is up to snuff, because they know that they're going to have to act with a bigger military. So they do a lot of joint exercises and stuff like that. Finland is rearming and has a massive conscript army as well. They still do conscription because they still remember the last time Russia took a big fucking bite out of them. So yeah. Yes, I've been corrected. I always get these mixed up. Baltic, the Baltic countries, not the Balkans. That's near Greece. Thank you.
The Balkans, the Baltic nations. Before we get into the next story, though I would love to pick your brain about everything historical. I find it very
I can talk
fascinating.
about this shit forever.
You're the spitting image of my brother and that sort of stuff. He spent much of his childhood watching. I would be wanting to watch the channel, Cartoon Network channel, and at my grandparents' place because the only place they had Sky. His was always the History Channel, and I'd be like, "This is so boring," and it would be like a World War II documentary, and he's reading his books about war planes and tanks and things, and so
that's
I always find it fascinating now, but when I was younger, I didn't find it so much. So I missed out on a lot of history things. All right, last couple of super chats. No gammons for $5. Drumpf. I always love that. Drumpf. It's a much better name. I think that's his family. That's what it was before it was Trump. I believe that's what I think it was Stephen Colbert brought that up. That it's technically Drump before it was Trump. Now gets to live out his mob fantasies by running a protection racket on an ally, I assume, like a common street gang would a local business.
Yep, absolutely. There's a really good video that I saw the other day, and I'd love to play it for you. But StreamYard wants to mess with me today. It's a little cartoon of little Donnie and the Russian money laundering, and it covers his activities since the late 80s, and how, if one had a suspicious mind, you might say that Trump has been completely compromised by Russian mob money since the fall of the Soviet Empire. And that's what built up his real estate empire. That's what made him look wealthy when he wasn't. And it all goes away if his friend, the authoritarian dictator that used to be in the KGB that would know these things, goes away. The other point that I saw that was quite interesting is an economic reason why Russia cannot just go to the peace table and call it a day. Their whole economy has pivoted into the war. Their unemployment numbers have gone down because everybody's gone into the army. Everybody that's not in the army is building tanks and guns and all of that sort of stuff. If the war stops, the soldiers come home and that war work stops, the Russian economy collapses completely. They cannot stop the war. And I thought that was a really interesting point of view, that there's the political reason for the war, but there's also an economic reason.
Yeah, there's no turning back now, essentially. Shall we get into the next story for the night? I'll have nothing to show, unfortunately. I don't know why this isn't working, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll figure it out. It's all right. We'll read through it. Simeon Brown is in the news twice today.
That lovable little scamp.
Yeah, that little guy.
Politician most voted to look like a chuppa chup.
He well, I suppose because he's the Minister of Health. They have hang on, what am I trying to say? Defunded? I suppose technically somewhat defunded. A Māori health initiative to screen Māori and Pacifica for bowel cancer from age 50. Currently, it is 60 and up. You get free bowel cancer screenings between the ages of 60 and 74. There was a pilot program running for Māori and Pacifica where they dropped that screening down to 50. And because Māori and Pacifica are at higher risk of getting bowel cancer much earlier in their late adulthood. However, they've pulled the funding in the name of equality. And so they decided to reallocate their funding to drop the age of free screening from 60 and to start it at 58 for everyone instead, which is not a bad thing. mean, it's an extra 2 years that it's going there. But something that they mentioned was that it's now going to where it's most needed. They decided to change it based on need. Despite the fact that I would argue that many experts now argue Māori and Pacifica people need it a little bit earlier because their stats show that they get it earlier. So the whole idea of putting it where it's needed by dropping the age by 2 years for everyone, perhaps not the best use of that funding. However, anyone that was in that pilot program will continue to access that free screening from age 50. So they'll continue to get it for the next 10 years. But I don't imagine there was too many people that were in that program. And the age for people in Australia, they do their bowel screening for everyone from the age 45 and up. Which I mean would be a much better initiative altogether. If you wanted equality, you could have dropped it all down to 50, but that is what it is. There are some experts that have called this essentially institutionalized racism. Essentially not giving Māori and Pacifica what they need. The health outcomes that it will cause, or the poor outcomes it will cause for Māori and Pacifica, who we know tend to have poorer outcomes than that of other populations here in New Zealand. And something I realised was that other than getting it earlier for whatever reasons, Māori and Pacifica people, not to generalise, but there's a good large portion of them that are in lower socioeconomic situations and will probably put off going to the doctor if they have health issues. In favour of other things. So that could be part of why their stats are quite poor when it comes to bowel cancer, and how when they catch it, it might be quite far down the line. So really, this is pretty shit. The other populations, higher socioeconomic people in better circumstances, will not put off going to the doctor. They'll probably have better access to healthcare. And if they start to see issues, they probably will go to the doctor pretty soon after those issues start to arise. And probably will also be believed is another thing as well. When they have issues, there's a lot of stats out there. Well, there's a lot of research out there that says that ethnic communities or minority communities tend to be dismissed a lot more often than I guess Caucasian communities, really. Yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty shit day, I think, for Māori, and I'm all for everyone getting better healthcare in terms of better screening and things, but I would have said that this was much more needed for them than it is for the large majority of the population. Or even better still, they could have just dropped everyone down to 50.
I think this is going to become a theme for the rest of the show. Simeon Brown has acted against all advice. Years and years of study and data pointed people in a particular direction, and they say the portion of our population is affected by this more, has worse outcomes in our health system. We have problems with systemic racism, and we should do something about that. We can do something about it because we've looked at it, we've done the work, we've found out that it is actually a fucking thing, and we've found out that that portion of our population is affected by this at an earlier age and has worse outcomes when they get it. So we don't have infinite money. We can't just drop it down for everybody. So why don't we just drop it down for the affected group? But people see that as, why do they get the fucking bowel screening and I don't? They see it as a race issue, and to solve it, they did a racism. It's ideal. Like, one of my big issues with Simeon Brown, more than anybody in National, he is an ideologue. He is someone that is quite happy to play the culture war things. If you follow his social media, see how snippy and snarky he is towards the Greens about various issues. Like everything he's done in this government has been ideologically driven and 100% against expert advice. Raising the speed limits against expert advice, cancelling pedestrian safety measures, and I see a kitty tail. All of these things that we're improving things for pedestrians and cyclists, and making people safer. God, get them out of there. Unlock the true potential of the country by mildly increasing the speed limit to a level where people will definitely not survive as often. And then he put in health, and then exactly the same thing happens. That he starts making edicts based on a vibe and really playing into that culture war thing, rather than doing the work and going, there's been a shit ton of data, and I can actually look at the data and I can understand what needs to happen. He hasn't looked at any of that. Guarantee it. Hasn't been in the job long enough. This is another decision from Simeon Brown that is going to get people killed.
The second story of Simeon Brown in the news, not necessarily getting people killed, this one, but it's still on the same lines. Can you... Okay, this is my new cat. He's a new adoptee. He's still getting used to things. And he's just...
I just like the tail.
Around.
Like, no,
I know. He's just at the wrong height.
no.
He'll come say hi at some point because he will start to go, meh, feed me. Simeon Brown's appointed prominent oil gas lobbyist to Energy Savings Board against official advice. What were you saying? Ignores expert advice?
Ignores all expert advice. This dude... Okay, so first and foremost...
Hang on. Do you want me to read through the story, or do you want to continue?
Yeah, go on. Before I pick off.
Let me just get the facts, okay? A top government minister personally added a fossil fuel lobbyist to the shortlist of candidates to help govern the country's main energy-saving agency. Simeon Brown then overrode official advice to appoint the lobbyist to the role. The former energy minister put John Carnegie on the board of the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority in December, despite Carnegie not making the cut during interviews. Officials managing the recruitment process twice tried to exclude the fossil fuel lobbyist from the running, according to documents released to RNZ under the Official Information Act, first after an initial screening, and a second time after Brown instructed them to interview Carnegie. That's very interesting. Brown also made another appointment to the EECA board the same month, that of accountant Vijay Goel. Goel's appointment also came after Brown instructed recruiting staff to interview him, then overrode advice that he was not suitable for the job. I'm sorry, but that just screams corruption. Does it not?
It does.
Putting friends in high places, right?
What's the point of having an interview process if the minister just comes in and goes, nah, this is my dude, my boy, Mr. Oil and Gas. Put him on the Energy Efficiency and Conservation group. Like, it's mental. That's had a huge amount of funding for EV and solar and all of this sort of stuff, decarbonizing our energy structure. That's what that group was. And they picked an oil and gas lobbyist against all advice. He didn't even interview well.
Yeah.
And he's still there. It is corruption. It is, again, another lobbyist in a key position.
It's like I would probably have forgiven him for saying, hey, these are two people I'd like to be interviewed for the role. I think they've got something to say. They would add some value to this. As a minister, you've got that privilege. Sure, probably wouldn't look great, though. If they didn't interview well, probably would have put my hands up and gone, okay, maybe they're not right for the job then. I'll take your advice. perhaps not the best person for the job. They didn't interview very well. Let's move on and get the best people for the job. But just to ignore it blatantly and be like, nah, I don't get what you say. You went through the process, but like he's going to be on the board. And even though
He's
the
going to be
experts
on
are
the
saying,
board. He's
don't do
my
it.
boy. What's the guy's name again?
John Carnegie.
No,
To give you
don't
some
say.
background on him, he is is chief executive. Is chief executive of Energy Resources Aotearoa, formerly the Petroleum Exploration and Production Association, and has been a leading voice for the repeal of the ban of offshore oil and gas exploration, as well as support and subsidies to make fossil fuel drilling more attractive.
Fantastic.
Initially, Carnegie
That's
was on a
great.
long list of potential options whom recruiters at the Ministry for Business Innovation and Employment approached to apply. He applied and was considered, but officials decided the oil and gas spokesperson should not progress to the shortlist.
And then Simeon Brown threw his book bag on the ground and said, no, my mate Oily John's on the board. Oily John.
I'll read this. However, after viewing MBIE's shortlist of candidates, Brown told officials not to interview anyone on it. Instead, he instructed them to interview Carnegie and Gold.
It is corruption. I don't see
Plain
anybody
and
else.
simple.
The whole point of these organizations is to be politically neutral. And I just don't see how you put an oil and gas guy, a lobbyist, in that position and go, yeah, it's still politically neutral. It's fine. It's not a problem. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So some great stuff coming out of Simeon then. He's really the best part about all of this is that he is no longer the Minister for Energy, I think it is. What was his former portfolio? Was it energy?
Hasn't he still got it? I can't keep
No,
they
energy
keep
minister,
on
yep. No,
they keep on
he's no
parachuting
longer-
him into stuff.
No longer energy minister. He's now the health minister. So, and I think he was also the transport minister, and now he's no longer the transport minister. So he's just going through all the major profiles and just shitting on all of them. He's doing a really good job of spreading his shit everywhere.
Since we're talking about oil and gas,
Dog with diarrhea.
doing that toboggan thing across your white carpet. Speaking of oil and gas and the media, which seems to be our whole thing, a story that we haven't got on the docket today, but definitely one that I've followed today, because it started out being a really dry ball story, like who cares? But a Canadian billionaire has bought almost a 10% stake in NZME. Obviously, New Zealand Herald, News Talk, ZB. So straight away there, provocative headline. Canadian billionaire, what's he doing buying some of our media? Well, when he bought that 10%, he said he didn't really have any designs on shaking up the organization. No more than 3 days later, he is making a bid to sack the entire board and appoint him and two other people of his choosing to that board. So it's kind of important now that a foreign billionaire is trying to get control of a major media organization in this country. We have enough problems with our media organizations at the moment. They're under the pump. So I think someone is swooping in like a big oily vulture to get his piece of the pie. Now, what makes this interesting is that his company is up to its fucking eyeballs in oil and gas, and that this guy has anti-vax views, who has libertarian views, who is involved in groups like the faux news website, I guess you'd call it here in New Zealand, called The Centrist. That sounds nice, eh? Centrist positions, I assume. No, they're all right-wing, all masking as we're just talking about common sense. So this is another rich man with his finger on the scales, trying to change shit here. And at this point, I don't know exactly how the board are going to have any go at trying to stop him or whether they are going to stop him. But this whole thing, the oil and gas, the alternative news organizations trying to get into the mainstream news organizations, anti-climate change, identity politics, all of that sort of stuff. What's that smell? It's fucking Atlas. If it's anything, this reeks of Atlas.
No, Chewie, you're on that conspiracy train again. It's.
I really am.
Just,
I
please
really
stop.
am.
It's just it's.
We can
I
just
think
put
we need
that
an
meme
intervention
up.
for you.
If we could put memes up, which we can't because it's broken StreamYard, we'd do that one with the guy and the red string and all of that sort of stuff. But when it keeps happening, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Does it feel good? This feels it feels bad. It feels very, very bad.
The Atlas Network thing is just one of those things that you don't even need to wholeheartedly believe in it. It just follow the money, right? It's all there. It's just an Atlas plot. But it is like if you try and explain it, I've tried to explain it to my friends over in Japan, for some reason, as you do. But it's such a hard and convoluted and nuanced and like so much background and like all of these connections and dots. It's not really something you can just bring up in a 5-minute conversation. It's a 2-hour deep dive by Detective Rogers. Like
I was just going to say it's Detective Rogers swings out with he's off the top rope with a steel chair and a PowerPoint presentation that convinces
he's ready to go and be like, okay, this is how it all works. But it's it just makes you sound like a crazy bugger. But yeah. Sad world we live in, isn't it? Very sad world we live in. Anything else to add towards the end of the evening? I suppose you can't really show anything. Unfortunately,
no, I can't show anything.
Tell us about things.
No, it wouldn't be another day without another school lunch story. This time,
yes.
I believe Whangarei getting burns bad enough to put him in A&E.
Yep.
So that's good.
See that?
I am not aware of that ever happening under Labor's lunch program. Don't think anybody was put in hospital by the lunches.
This is a regular conversation. My partner is very skeptical on everything. He doesn't like to pass judgment. But we had a very
time for that. The time for that, Emily, is gone. It's all judgment all the time.
I think he's just sick of me being like, they suck, and he's like, okay, we're gonna give them. I do give them grace for some things, but they all suck. The issue with it is the story alone would be a problem. That a kid has 2-second-degree burns from his lunch. That in itself is a huge news story, but this is on top of every fucking day since the start of term 1, the start of the school year, that we have heard about food issues every day. And it's getting to the point where we are getting tired of it. But we shouldn't be getting tired of it. It shouldn't be a news story every fucking day. They should acknowledge the fact that this isn't working. Something's going wrong. There's too many failure points, and they need to put more money into it to make it work.
We have full faith in David Seymour. He's across his portfolio. He's aware that there's problems. He's going to fix it. Luxon said so. Luxon's not going to do anything about it because he's got full faith. That's what that phrase means to me. If someone says that they have full faith in someone, it means I'm not going to do anything. I've got full faith, so I don't need to go over there and talk to him about it. I've got full faith, so I'm not going to ask him what the plan is to fix it. I'm just going to trust him that he'll fix it. Like, it's weak.
The thing that really pissed me off about Seymour's comments yesterday, but apart from the fact every time he fucking talks about this thing, is that he's so arrogant and so dismissive of what the whole point of the program is to feed hungry kids, and the whole Marmite situation. Fucking stupid comments. The thing that really pissed me off about his comments to the media yesterday was the comment of, will you resign from this program and hand it off to someone else? And he says, oh, no, this is my project. I've taken it on, and I'm really enjoying the challenge. I'm really enjoying the challenge of fucking up a program which is supposed to feed children. It's not a challenge. It's not a fun project. This is not a fucking school project. They're talking about kids who fucking need fed.
If you want a challenge, mate, go and do a ropes course somewhere. Join a climbing gym. I don't know, something that doesn't involve absolutely ruining someone's day would be
grow a garden. That's a fun little hobby, little project. You need some hobbies, David Seymour. Go and grow shit in your garden, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, volunteer at a local school. Maybe actually do something good with your existence instead of fucking everything over. You're real dickhead.
I'm going to be honest. I'd have criticism for him for this either way, but isn't it funny after throwing the announcement that he was engaged out on Waitangi, we haven't heard anything about it since. We've heard nothing.
No.
Can't see it. Of course, I'm going to admit that I'm a hypocrite here. If we had been seeing more about his fiance, I'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake, I don't care. Shut up. I did see, speaking of conspiracy, actually, I did see a good one, and I looked into this. Luxon obviously used to work for Unilever.
Mm-hmm.
And
famously deodorant man.
Isn't it interesting that he mentioned Marmite specifically, which is owned by Unilever? And I looked into it. Marmite in the UK is owned by Unilever. The Marmite here is different. It's owned by Sanitarium. So the conspiracy doesn't work.
It's a fun one. He mentioned Marmite. He used to work for the company that owns Marmite. It's all connected. That's what we fucking sound like when we talk about bloody Atlas.
Connect the yeasty dots and follow the money.
All right, let's get to the last of these super chats, and then we'll play us out. Jeremy Naylor for $2 says late fee. Thank you. You guys don't have to give late fees, but we appreciate it. Vanda Amor, $5. Read this the other day. We aren't patients in a health system. We are customers in a wealth system. Ouch.
Yep. Look, Luxon used that phrasing for patients the other day, that they were customers. And I mean, I hate it. It doesn't feel right, because customers pay for a service. Like,
oh, but that's what he's used to. He pays insurance, so he does pay for health. The rest of us don't. We're not customers. We are the patients, but he's a customer because he pays for his health care, obviously.
Like, I always felt yucky about that. Like when Wins refers to clients, like Wins has been hired by them, by the unemployed, to get them a job. Like, it's I don't know what you call them otherwise, but it's just. It's never sat well for me that corporate speak coming into public service.
Yeah. Shitty world we live in. Before we go, the last little thing. There's a great video by Friendly Geordies. He's an Australian political commentator / more of a comedian / not really a journalist, but seems to be doing better journalism than other people. You would have seen probably his thumbnails that might have come up that says my house burnt down, or someone
yes,
down my house.
That's quite the saga.
That's a saga in itself. He's got a whole playlist of that. But he put out a video today that was really good, talking about how basically there is no such thing as centre or unbiased news. I'll just find the title for you. The sponsor on YouTube. So he's basically talking about something called Ground News, which has been around for a little while. And they famously have you now. Watch his video then, because you might have a different view. I think the idea is really good, but his video is interesting. It's a great commentary on it. So if you've got some time. Go and watch it.
I am immediately suspicious of any news organization that just says that they're unbiased, because it's next to impossible. Like, do you remember that fantastic period of time where Fox had the slogan "Fair and Balanced"?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they actually ran with that, and people believed it. It's crazy, but like very much like the criticism that is sometimes directed towards BHN, that we're not unbiased. Well, I think everybody has a bias. They have either an unconscious or an acknowledged bias, and it's just whether they're going to be fair with it, or whether the organization that they're part of is also going to platform alternate view. And like that can be the danger, right? Like, you can get into that pipeline with any discussion, and you end up giving more weight to the less prevalent view because you're giving equal airtime to both sides of the argument. It's like the whole thing with climate change. Like, if the news coverage reflected the actual scientific view of where the climate change is happening, then every story would be like, holy shit, climate change is really, really happening. And then once a year we would hear from some guy that goes, no, it's not. And that would be fair. That would be representative of the scientific community's view on climate change. But that's not what we have. We have talk shows that will have the person that thinks that it's happening and the person that doesn't think that they're happening, and try and give them equal time and say that that's balanced. So yeah,
Well, that's how we
any
ended up
news
with the-
organization that says that they're right in the middle, that actually tell you that, be suspicious.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the exact thing happen with the Treaty Principles Bill, right? We gave Seymour a lot of airtime on his bill. I mean, it's a little bit different to facts and science, but yeah, that's the downside, or the possible ramifications of showing both sides, the dissenting and the other view, the dissenting and the other view, the opposite view. Yeah, but yeah, good friendly Geordies. Go and check out his stuff. It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, good times.
Now I'm going to try something different now.
Whoa.
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 You heard that. But will you guys see this? I guess we'll find out.
Oh,
Otherwise,
that's a
we'll
good
just sit here
point.
dancing. I'm adding
Let
it as
us-
a media file. So
Let us
You can
know
at
in the
least
chat if
see
you
it.
see the credits.
I apologize in advance. I could just read all the names if I have to. Or we can just play out the music. And then, look, we can find something. We can put super chats on and play the music. It's we'll see how it goes. Let's go.
Are we seeing it?
Help us settle a debate, whether
No.
it be thoughtful or funny,
No.
even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is
Oh,
hairy,
yeah, that's it.
knowing all the things that we need to be
yeah.
wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work at what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what Chewie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
Oh, thanks for watching, guys. Sorry about the slight technical difficulties. And yes, I do know that playing it this way does make it stutter quite some. So, apologies. We'll try and get it fixed up for tomorrow night, where me and Magenta are going to run you through a recap of the week and a bunch of other stuff. And mostly just memes. But thanks for watching. Pat will be with you on Monday night. Myself and Magenta will be with you tomorrow at 9. And Chewie?
I'd just like to give a shout out to a new food place in town. You can order this stuff online. Go to seymourslop.nz. That is Seymour's Slop NZ.
Sounds great.
That's all from me.
Right, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night, and Chewie will see you Monday.
Cheers, fam.
Jenny.